Women don't actually live in the same world you do. They live in a world built on feelings, stories, and imagination. A world that often doesn't exist outside their own mind. Think about it. A man looks at reality as it is, numbers in a bank account, facts, logic, structure. But a woman, she can turn a single smile from you into a full romance story in her head. She can take one delay in your reply and build an entire heartbreak that hasn't even happened. It's not that women are wrong. It's that their mind works different. They see life not only for what it is, but for what it could be. And that can make them dream, desire, love deeply, but also assume, overthink, and test you in ways you don't even see coming. If you don't understand this hidden world women live in, you'll always feel confused by their actions. Why she suddenly pulls away when everything seems perfect. Why she imagines problems when there are none. Why she tells you one thing, but her behavior whispers something else. This isn't madness. It's psychology. And once you understand it, you stop getting frustrated and start leading with calm. Because here's the truth. If you don't know how to handle the world inside her head, you'll never have peace in the world outside of it. One feelings first, facts later. A man sees the world as a map, straight lines, turns, and directions. If the GPS says it'll take 20 minutes, he knows it's 20 minutes. That's reality. But a woman lives in a world where the journey isn't just about the destination. It's about how she feels along the way. She's not asking, does this make sense? She's asking, does this feel right? You might think it's irrational, but to her, it's the only logic that matters. And this is where men mess up. We try to argue feelings with facts. She says, you don't love me anymore because you didn't call. You reply, I was busy at work. That doesn't make then. Ian, I don't love you. That's a fact. Yes, but in her world, the fact is irrelevant. What matters is how she felt. This is why women can cry during a movie, even when they know the story isn't real. They live inside the emotional reality more than the physical one. And if you want peace, you need to stop fighting that. Don't try to win arguments with logic. Learn to speak in feelings. Say, I hear you. I get why you felt ignored. That wasn't my intention. Suddenly she calms down. Not because you proved her wrong, but because you entered her world instead of dragging her into yours. Understanding this difference doesn't make you weak, it makes you powerful. A man who knows how to respect her emotional reality without losing his own ground. That's a man she can't forget. 2 stories in her head. Here's a truth that will shock you. Women don't just respond to what is happening. They respond to the story they've created in their mind. And these stories are vivid. You send her a simple goodnight text. To you, it's the end of the day. To her, it can be the beginning of a whole fantasy. She replays the way you said it, the emojis, the tone she imagines in her head. She'll tell her best friend the way he texts me. I just know he's thinking about me all night. Now flip it. You take a little longer to reply. In your world, you were busy, nothing more. But in her world, the story begins. Maybe he's losing interest. Maybe there's another woman. Maybe I'm not enough. The story takes on a life of its own, even if none of it matches reality. This is why you can never just focus on the surface when dealing with a woman. You need to ask yourself, what story is she telling herself right now? If you're silent, she writes her own script. If you're careless, she writes you as the villain. But if you know how to guide the narrative with calm, mystery, and strength, she writes you as the H8. Aero, remember this, women don't just live life, they narrate it in their heads. And you, whether you like it or not, are a main character in her story. The question is, what role are you playing? 3, tests are her reality. Check. Men hate tests, but here's the bitter truth. Women don't even know they're testing you most of the time. For them, it's not a test. It's just the world they live in. Imagine this. She pulls back after you had a perfect week together. Suddenly, she gets distant, acts cold, doesn't text first. A man sees this and thinks, yeah, she's playing games, she's disrespecting me. But in her world, this coldness isn't about you losing value. It's her subconscious checking if the feelings she built in her head are real. See, women live in a world where emotions rise and fall like waves. Today, she's on a high, feeling safe, loved, and drawn to you. Tomorrow, the voice inside, her head whispers, "But what if he's not who I think he is? What if I'm being fooled?" So she pulls back, not because she stopped caring, but because she needs to see how you'll respond when things aren't smooth. That's her world. It doesn't exist outside her own thoughts. But for her, it's as real as gravity. And this is where men lose power. They chase harder. They panic. They try to fix everything overnight. And when they do, she sees weakness instead of strength. The man who passes, her test doesn't explain, doesn't beg, doesn't play along. He stays calm. He keeps walking his path with or without her validation. And that's when her mind rewrites the story. He's real. He's solid. He doesn't break. If you understand this, you stop seeing her actions as betrayal and start seeing them as her way of confirming your strength. Tests aren't games. They're her way of making sure her imagined world doesn't collapse. And if you fail, she never trusts her feelings for you again. 4. Desire lives in what's missing. Here's something that men often miss. Women don't fall for what you give them. They fall for what you withhold. Think about it. If you answer every call, text instantly, show up every time she hints, she gets comfort, but she doesn't get desire. Why? Because her imagination has no room to breathe. Women live in a world built on what if. The unanswered question, the little gap, the silence, that's what fuels her emotions. If you give her everything up front, she has nothing to imagine. But if you leave space, her mind fills it in. This is why women can obsess over a man who barely gives them attention while ignoring the one who worships the ground they walk on. The mystery man gives her brain oxygen. Her imagination paints him larger than life. The worshipper gives her no room to dream, so she gets bored. The truth is simple but harsh. Too much access kills attraction. Men think love is about constant presence. Women need presence, yes, but they also need absence, because in that absence, they write stories about you. They replay your words. They wonder what you're doing. And that wondering is what keeps you alive in her mind. A woman doesn't live in the world of what is. She lives in the world of what could be. And the smart man doesn't destroy that. He feeds it carefully without overexposing himself. 5. She sees you as who you could become. One of the biggest differences between men and women is how they see potential. A man looks at a woman and sees her as she is. A woman looks at a man and sees him as he could be. That's why women fall for projects. They date a man who doesn't have his life together. But in her head, she already sees the finished product. She imagines the stable provider, the strong leader, the man who will rise. And she clings to that image even when reality doesn't match. This is both her strength and her downfall. On one hand, it allows her to inspire, nurture, and motivate men to grow. On the other hand, it blinds her to reality. She lives in a world that doesn't exist yet, your future self. For men, this is dangerous if you're lazy, because if you don't grow into the man, she imagines, she'll eventually resent you. Her dream version of you will collapse and she'll blame you for breaking her inner world. But if you are the man who keeps leveling up, she'll never leave. Because every step you take toward growth confirms the story in her mind. Men must learn this. Women don't. Just love who you are. They love who you're becoming. If you stagnate, you kill her desire. But if you grow, you keep her world alive. 6, her world needs your grounding. Here's the final truth. Yes, women live in a world that doesn't exist. But that's exactly why they need men. Her imagination can make her feel on top of the world one day and broken the next. She can create love stories in her head that never happened or fears that don't exist outside her mind. That's her gift, but also her curse. And this is where a man with grounding steps in. Your job is not to enter her emotional storms and get tossed around. Your job is to stand, solid like the shore against her waves. When she's carried away by thoughts, you anchor her. When she doubts, you remain calm. When she creates drama, you don't get pulled in, you stay steady. This doesn't mean ignoring her world. It means acknowledging it without letting it control you. You validate her feelings, but don't bend your reality to them. That's how she feels safe. That's how she respects you. The mistake weak men make is trying to live inside her world, thinking that's what love means. But if you lose your own grounding, she loses attraction. She doesn't want a man who floats where she floats. She wants a man who stays steady so she has something to hold on to. That's the paradox. She lives in a world that doesn't exist, but she craves a man who lives firmly in the one that does. If you master this balance, you'll never struggle with women again. So remember this. Women don't live in the world you see. They live in the world they feel. Their mind is a movie theatre always, running stories, tests, and dreams. Don't fight it. Don't get angry at it. Learn it, respect it, but never lose your ground in the process. If this hit you, drop a comment below. I choose calm. And if you want more raw truths about psychology, women, and relationships, subscribe now and turn on that bell